Hi everyone, so today's video I'm going to go through the layering process on a couple of the petals on this lovely little China rose. So I put the beginnings of this drawing on Instagram, and quite a few of you asked me if I could do a tutorial on this, so I really should have done it from the beginning, but since so many of you asked, then I'll continue and I'll just do a couple of the petals. We'll do one of the greeny coloured and we'll do one of the pink coloured, so you can see the colours that I'm using and the layering process. Now this paper today, it's a toned paper and it's Legion Stonehenge Kraft paper. It's my first time using this paper, and I'm quite enjoying it, to be honest, so it's nice. We'll see how I feel at the end of the drawing, but so far so good. And the reason that I drew this particular rose on this paper was because I wanted to really make the light pale pastel colours pop, and when you're working on tone paper like a grey or a brown, it really helps to make those colours nice and bright and show up well. So we're going to do a couple of the petals, as I said, and then I'll probably show you the rest of the flower sped up, just so you can see how it is at the end. So yeah, let's get cracking. Right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay a piece of tracing paper down just to rest my hand on, because the graphite smears quite a lot on this paper, and I didn't put one down previously, and I don't know whether you can see, but it's kind of gone a bit smudgy around here, so I'm just going to protect the paper, and I'm going to lift off. We're going to start with this back petal, so I'm going to lift off some of the graphite with Blu Tac, as always, just from this area. I'm going to put my Blu Tac into a little point to get in there so I don't disturb any of the coloured pencil I've already put down, and I'm just going to lightly remove this edge as well. So this is one of the more greeny coloured petals, and I'm going to start off with a light lemon yellow Pablo pencil, and I'm going to work this in from right in this little corner here and work it out. So we're going to start off with a nice light pressure and just stroking an outline there around the edge of that petal. Okay. So with nice light pressure, circular motions, so that we get a nice even layer, and I'm going to take this all the way over. So as I said, this is a new paper to me. I have worked on Strathmore toned tan before, and I've also worked on Stillman and Burn toned papers. I think it's the Nova series, the Stillman and Burn, and they're both nice surfaces. The Strathmore does have sort of little threads that you can see in the paper, which I know some people really don't like, and I find with the Strathmore that you do have to apply more pressure and to really sort of, get your colours layered on there. It can be sort of harder work. The Stillman and Burn was nice. It's a lovely surface. But this one currently is behaving rather nicely, so I'm enjoying it. So just get down into that little crevice. And come up here. And the Pablos work spectacularly on this paper. They really, they adhere nicely, they blend nicely, they work really well. So that's always good. And I've got a nice, lovely cold day again here today. I've had some more snow. I've had to get a little heater in my little art room because it's quite cool in here today. Okay, so I'm not taking it all the way up to the edge just yet, just feathering it out there. Right, so that's our first layer down. And now I'm going to move to, let's see, we're going to move to Luminance Buff Titanium, a nice sharp one, and we are going to plot in the edges here. This has got some nice bits where the petal is curving over on the edges, so I'm just going to plot those in. A nice sharp point for this. I do find that the points wear down quite quickly on this paper, but and these are actually these curly bits are actually more green in colour, so I'm just plotting the edge and I'm not taking it all the way down there. I'm using quite a firm pressure to apply this. Not hard, but firmer than how I applied the yellow. So always studying the reference just to make sure that it's accurate, because even though you've got your line drawing, you still need to make sure that you're in the right place and that everything's looking correct. Okay, so that's our edge put in for now. And we're going to move on now to a Pablo lime green. And we're going to do exactly the same, layer over that yellow. So that was our base, and this is going to add a nice light green layering, because we still want the lemon to show through. So just being careful when you go around the edges. This petal here, and into this fold. And now that we've got those curved over edges plotted in, I'm going to take this lime green all the way up and under those. So we've got some nice shadowy areas under those curves. So I just stroke when I get round to the edges there, just to make sure we've got some definition. Oh, and I did buy a new microphone last week, specifically for recording these videos. So I'm hoping that that the audio is going to be better quality. So you'll have to let me know what you think. So, as I said, the point of your pencils where it seems to wear down quicker on this paper. So, whereas normally I could get a few layers from one sharpen, with this I'd be sharpening after every layer, or on a big petal maybe even a couple of times during a layer. Because as you can see, I mean, my pointer's virtually gone now. Okay. So that's the lime green added. And I'm going to move on now to an earth green from Pablo, not at all, Polychromos, and that's to start adding in some of the shadowy areas. So we've got a nice bit of shadow down in here. And for this, you're going to need a slightly firmer pressure again. And going right up underneath the curls. And this is kicking off quite a bit of dust now. And just stroking under there. And I'm just following the shape of the shadow that I can see on the petal, and I'm using a firmer pressure up underneath the curls and then feathering out as I come more central into the petal. And again, taking it right up underneath that curl. So the colours can look a bit garish at this stage, but once all the layers are on, it'll all be nice and smooth. And again around here. And this is a lovely grey green. It's a really nice sort of botanical shadowy colour. Okay, I'm just going to go and sharpen that quickly. Now we'll continue. It gets quite dark under here. And then we've got a little bit of light coming through here. And another little shadow there. And then it starts again, just under here. And then that comes all the way to the edge of the next petal. Like that. So that's our darkest shadow areas. Now there will be a little bit of earth green on the edge here as well, but I'm going to pop that in later when I've finished off the colour on the curls. So I'm going to take a little bit of May green now, which is a Faber Castell, and I'm just going to bring a bit of freshness into that shadow, just in certain areas. So it's sort of just right up underneath the edges there. Okay. Now we're going to take a Prismacolor Pale Sage, and I'm going to run that virtually over every, oh, and there we go. I've started with a firmer pressure and the tip has snapped, which is quite common, but it's just one of those things. So, but I'm not going to resharpen just yet because I've still got a bit of a sharp edge, and this is just essentially a blending layer, so I'm not too concerned yet. But this Pale Sage is a beautiful colour, and it's another one of those colours that I can't replicate in any other brand. So now, as I said, I'm using quite a firm pressure here to sort of bring everything together a little bit. So taking it over the lemon and lime green paleness first, and then we'll start moving into the shadows. Now, as I go onto the shadow, I am using a lighter pressure, not as hard as I did with the over the lemon. Let's just dust that off. And now I am going to just sharpen that again. And we'll try and be a little bit less heavy-handed here. Try not to snap the point this time. Prismas are very soft pencils though, so they are easy to snap, easy to mangle in sharpeners. Let's just dust that off again. So even though we're blending, we're still working in those soft circular motions. Keep everything nice and even. Where we can. Let's just take it down into that little crevice there. Just make sure everything's nice and blended. A little bit more over there. Okay. So I'm going to go on to a Faber Castell Warm Grey 2 now. And I'm just going to go over some of the shadowy areas. And just deepen it up a little bit. And I'm not overly happy with how that's going, so I'm going to go back to the earth green. And we'll go over with that again instead. Just in the darkest areas, just to just to make those stand out a bit more. That's better. I'm just going to go right up to that edge now and sharpen it up a little bit. And again, just under those curls, that's where the shadow is darkest and fading out as we pull down. And if at any time you think, you know, that you've gone too dark or you've put too much, you can always blend again with that pale sage. The key to getting the folds in here and to make them look sort of realistic is it's all about layering and blending and layering on this paper. And making sure that your contrast is high enough without being too overpowering. So I'm bringing it down slightly further this time. And with the point really defining those edges. Okay, so I think that's dark enough for now. Okay, so we're going to go back to the pale sage and we're going to go over those curled areas and give them the greeny tone that they are. Having that titanium buff underneath just keeps the lightness. or buff titanium rather. So at this edge here, it sweeps down and around behind. So I'm just going to fill that area in with the pale sage. And then again, just go over and the whole lead's broke now. I think I must have dropped this pencil at some point because I seem to be having a lot of issues with it snapping, and they don't normally snap right down here at the wood casing. It's normally just the tips, but that one that just completely snapped off. And I'm really not pressing hard enough for it to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my my light lemon yellow, the Pablo, and I'm just going to go over the very lightest edges of this with that. And just a little bit there. And then back to the earth green Polychromos, and just really make those pop and define that darkish shadow underneath there. And you could add a warm grey 3 maybe if you wanted it to be slightly darker. Okay, and now still with that warm, the earth green, I'm just going to bring a bit of shadow into this edge here where the petal sits over the top of it, like that, and that's all that's required, and a tiny little bit down here. And just there. And now we're going to bring it into this edge here. And very lightly just feather it in. Yeah, that curls round. So stroking it down on the outside where it's darker and feathering it in towards that very light edge. Okay, and I'm just going to go back to the May green and just bring a little bit more of that in. Just around here. And under there. And then also just around here where it's slightly warmer. And the shadow is warmer over this side and there. And a little bit in there. Okay. Now we're just going to add in a few, there's a few little vein marks that I can just about see. So I'll just sharpen this. And now very lightly and following the direction of the veins, I'm just going to add in a suggestion of where they are. I always find that less is more with this. You don't want to, you know, plot in every single vein, because that's when it becomes sort of unrealistic. You wouldn't see every single vein at this level, but you can see a suggestion, and that's all we want. And just always make sure to follow the flow. Okay. And we're just going to add a little bit more of the pale sage just right down here. Around the edge. And then a tiny bit more of the earth green just in this darker area. And really define that edge there. Like that. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do on this bit is because I seem to have lost a little bit of this edge here, I'm going to go in with the Luminance Pink White and just bring that back. There we go. Okay, so that is one of the greeny petals done, and now we'll move on to one of the pinks. Right, so for the pink one, we'll do this one here. So we'll just lighten that graphite. and the edge of this one as well. I'm just going to move my paper over slightly, this tracing paper, that's better. Okay, so I'm first of all just going to stroke in this edge so we don't lose it. So we have I'm using a pink white, sorry, to do that. There. Okay. Right, so we're going to start the base down here and work our way up, and we're going to start with the light lemon yellow again because we have some nice lemony areas in this pink as well, and it's quite warm down here, so let's just put that part in as well. And that's more of a yellowy edge. Right, okay, so again with circular motions we're going to bring this up and across the majority of this petal. And there's a little shadowy area in there where it curves round, so I just want to be mindful of the placement of that. And the lemon comes up quite high just to, it comes in a nice sort of light line around there. And then it follows on underneath this edge a little bit. Where it just sits behind that main body. Okay, so it comes in, so I'm feathering it out as I get towards the main pink area. Because it fades from yellow into a very pale pink. So very lightly here where it fades into that pale pink. And because we're using such a light hand, don't worry if you have sort of little holes in the paper where the pigment hasn't gone in, because that will be filled. Let's take that a little bit further. Okay. And so we're going to move to pink white now, and that's going to come in across here. And take it into the yellow. And this fades out up towards the edge of the petal. And sort of like that. And then bringing it still into the yellow here. And again fading it out across there. And bringing a bit of it down into here. And a little bit of it into the edge of that lemon there. We also, excuse me, we also need to just define that edge a little bit more. And then that goes into a dark pink, and bring a little bit of this down here where there's a little flash of light there. Okay. So I start bringing some of the pink in now, and I'm going to use a Pablo Granite Rose. And start down here. This is a lovely pale pink. Pablo do some really nice pinks, to be honest. We're going to stroke this at the edge. And that comes just behind where the fold is. around here. And then just a light layer there. And it comes down behind that lemon. Like that. And just up into there. Okay. There we go. Now, so far I haven't had to really do much erasing, but just to clean this edge up, I'm going to just see if my Tombow Mono works. Yes, it does. So that's fine. Okay, and let's continue with this Granite Rose and bring it into this area here. So it's sort of virtually going all over, really, all over the area that we've previously done. And again, just very lightly feather it up into those already lighter areas. And taking it over that pale area there slightly. Okay, now we're going to move on to another Pablo, and this is Salmon Pink. Now we're going to start to add some form by bringing in some of the darker areas. So this appears right down in the base here, and it comes up around the edge. it fades as it comes in. And we do have this little sort of area here where there's a line of it coming up. And it follows that edge up into here. And again around the base area here. And it just follows up there as well, up where there's going to be a shadow. And just following around the edge and then bringing it up into this area because it goes quite pinky around here. And again, it follows around this edge. And we've got a few veins and they flow this sort of way. So I'm just sort of giving myself a placeholder there and just mapping a few of those in very lightly. And now I'm going right in to the edge there. And just feathering it out. Okay, so we're going to start bringing in some of the darker edge as well. I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of this under here. If you can just see a bit of a shadow there. Okay. Now I'm going to start adding some of the shadow down here. So I'm going back to the warm grey too. And just pulling that in at the base here. And up the edge slightly. comes down here. And down there and fades out. And just comes in here. Now we may make that slightly darker after. Depending on how it looks when we've got the rest of the tones in. Yeah, I'm just going to bring a little bit of the earth green in just around this area because this is where it's most in shadow. Okay. Oops. And then I'm going to bring back a little bit of the lemon yellow just to warm it back up a little bit where there's that bit of light in there. And I've gone slightly over the edge there, but that's fine. I can adjust that later, and then back to the warm grey. Okay. Actually, let's try lifting that lemon yellow with the Blu Tac and see how it works. Oh yeah, that's quite nice actually. Lifts quite well. So let's just define that with the grey. That's better. And we just take a little bit of the Granite Rose again. Actually, sorry, back to the Salmon Pink, not the Granite Rose, that was the paler colour. That's it, and then just run that just around the edge. I'll take a bit more of it into the grey area here. We put that earth green, so we've still got that hint of pink, and once again I'm going to tone it down slightly with the grey. So it's all about just keep building up. Okay, so we're going to leave that little area now, just for now. Concentrate on this area and then we can see how we need to adjust the tones. So let's bring in some of that dark, and it is quite dark up there, but we'll start with the Salmon Pink. Sorry, Rose Pink, not Salmon Pink. Oh my gosh, going bananas. We're going to go with Rose Pink, which is another beautiful Pablo. We're going to bring that from the edge, top edge of the petal. And that comes down. the way inside. And down into this little area here. And this follows the lines of those veins, so I'm just sort of bringing little bits of it into the pink white and the salmon pink. So I'm just sort of skipping over here in these in those areas. Nice even coverage at the top of the petal, and just skipping in the shape of the veins, sorry, in the flow of the veins as we come into the lighter area. So let's get under this edge here, and we want to tighten that up there, that's better. And I'm just softening that white edge up slightly. Okay, and still following the flow of those markings, and just tapering in slightly further, or feathering in slightly further. And again, just going under that edge. Now we're going to start feathering this out now, because it becomes lighter as we move across here. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Luminance, and it's Anthraquinoid Pink. I hope I've said that right. It will be listed down below anyway. It's an interesting name. And there's just this bit of warmth in here, and this is a nice corally colour to just add that in with. And we have a little bit of this in that lighter area there. Just coming in here. And then we'll just blend it into that rose pink slightly. Like that, okay. And now for the dark areas up here, I'm going to move to Rose Carmine, which is a Pablo, and we're going to start deepening up the tip of this petal. where it's darkest. We're focusing this right over here, over this side, and again bringing little bits down into that, into the light, and then feathering that out. Now right in this area here, in that little recess, we've got a deep shadow, so we're going to use burnt carmine for that. And this follows, it actually comes right from here. Comes all the way in. And down into that, and I'm just going to pull a little bit of this just slightly further around this area here where there's a little bit of shadow. Nice and dark on that edge. Okay. There is also a hint of that, just a very slight hint going along the edge there. Right, so I'm going to go back now to my Granite Rose. I'm just going to sharpen that. And I'm just going to start to further blend. That went a bit scratchy then. Further blend in, or rather blend in, not further blend. Blend in these areas now. So I'm using this much as I used the pale sage in the green petal, feathering it out as I get up to that darker edge. You can always bring the dark back in though. I just want to get this nice and even. And get those pale colours sort of merged together. I'm going to take it into the lemon area here, but then I'm going to bring the lemon back as well. So, and into that tiny little edge there. Okay. Then I'm going back to my Salmon Pink and I'm bringing a little bit more of that in. To make that a little bit stronger at the base. And bring it back here. And then we'll bring that lemon back. So we have this nice bright edge just down here. And this lovely little flash of lemon over here. And then I'm going to go back to the rose pink, and I'm going to very lightly bring that back as well. And then with the rose pink, we're going to bring a bit of it into here at the base. And also down here. So it's slightly darker and just into here. And then it comes up slightly. And then we've got the indication of that veining to go in as well. I'm just going to darken that top area up again, so back to the rose carmine. And just deepen that up there. Okay, and then I feel that we need a little bit more down here, so we're going to go to the salmon pink, pop in a little bit more of that, and then add a bit of earth green for the shadow. So the earth green is just going right at the base. And fading upwards. And then smoothing it over again with the Salmon Pink. Okay. Now we're just going to add in some of those veining marks, and we're going to use the rose pink for that again. So following the shapes that we already sort of mapped out. And just adding in that suggestion. And when you use the very tip, the very point of the pencil for this, you're almost sort of scratching in to the pigment that you've laid down. It's hard to explain. And it just gives a nice effect. Okay. Now I think I just want to go slightly darker down here, so I'm going to add in a bit of the rose pink down here. Right at the bottom. Yeah, like that. Okay. So let's sharpen up the pink white. And I'm just going to define that edge a little more, just where it's at its lightest. And I'm just going to dull it down over here, where it's not as prevalent, and then just deepen up in here. Okay. And then I'm just going to go back to the burnt carmine, deepen that very darkest line up, and again very lightly bring it out a little bit further for a bit more of a shadowy area. And just a little bit more along here. Okay, so I think that petal is just about done until I've got the other petals around it and I can see how much I need to adjust my tones. So I'll go and continue doing some more petals, and then I'll come back to you later on. Okay, so I've finished up the rest of the petals and a couple of these little leaves here. And so I'm just going to show you now how I'm going to darken, sorry, I left this area here so that I could just show you that now we've got all the rest of the tones, how we're going to darken that up. So I'm going to use the that rose carmine, and we're just going to lightly take that in to the base here. and just add a bit more definition, a bit more depth. Only lightly. And just help this middle petal pop a little bit. Okay, and then I'm just going to go back to my warm grey too and bring a little bit more just down inside this shadow area. That's all I really need. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that Salmon Pink and just add a little bit in here. So, you know, once you've put all your petals down, it's a really good idea to just stand back, take another look at your flower and just see where you can adjust the tones. Okay, and I'm just going to go even slightly darker with that burnt carmine and just very lightly take that right in to that little corner area there. And that's all that needs. And back to the Salmon Pink, because I can see where this petal overlaps this one, we haven't got a shadowy area on that white edge. So I'm just going to diffuse that there, and then using the rose carmine, just bring that edge back. There we go. And so I'm going to call that one finished now. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial and I hope you found it useful, and if you did, then if you'd consider subscribing, then that would be absolutely fabulous, and it lets me know that you like my videos and you'd like to see more. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.